I hope everyone's having a lovely day. My name is Erin Meyer. I'm the Sustainable Food Programs Coordinator at UC Merced. Here today for the Seeding Change panel with Jeremy and Richard. And I am happy to get started by just reading their bios, and then they can also introduce themselves a little bit too. But to begin, Jeremy Black is the co-founder of Sambazon. He's also the proprietor of the Zuma Sanctuary, which I want to hear all about. Fresh off an academic scholarship and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Pepperdine University, Jeremy Black started his career as a financial planner before joining his brother Ryan Black and friend Ed Nichols in founding Sambazon in 2000, ultimately becoming the first company to introduce acai to the U.S. market. Jeremy was instrumental in Sambazon's rapid growth from startup to global brand. From meager beginnings selling one product to a handful of Southern California cafes, Jeremy spearheaded the development of the brand, the products, and the marketing into a full portfolio in frozen, juice, and energy supplement categories that are now sold all over the globe. In addition to helping the Sambazon team create new or entirely new category natural foods, Jeremy was passionate about creating positive socioeconomic and environmental change. Helping to pioneer a sustainable business model for Sambazon, Jeremy worked with EcoCert to create fair trade guidelines in Brazil for importing organic acai berries. Jeremy's latest passion has been his dedication to producing the award-winning documentary Seeding Change, which explores how socially responsible and mission-based businesses are empowering consumers to practice conscious commerce and shop brands that are helping to change business models and heal our planet. As an avid surfer, yogi, and snowboarder, Jeremy embodies Sambazon's way of life, providing organic energy for worldwide travels and active pursuits. He currently lives on his property, Zuma Sanctuary, in Malibu, California, with his wife and 2 daughters. Happy Father's Day, by the way. Richard is our director of the film. For over 20 years, Richard has been an active film producer, director, and writer with an educational background in communication, arts, and advertising. Richard began his career writing music album reviews for InStyle magazine. From 1992 to 1998, he was a senior copywriter for several advertising agencies. In 2000, he began his filmmaking career while also founding Curtis Birch, an Emmy Award-nominated and Webby Award-winning creative agency and production boutique, motivated by the idea that stories made from the heart can change the world. I agree, by the way. Richard is known for his captivating documentaries, which reflect his lifelong passion for action sports, youth culture, music, entertainment, and public service. 2 of his award-winning documentaries, Floating, the Nathan Gock story, I hope I pronounced that right, and 12 Miles North, are about surfing. One about a man who suffered a paralyzing neck injury, and the other of the story of Nick Gabaldon, who overcame racism to pursue his dream of surfing in a segregated 1940s USA. Besides filmmaking, Richard founded the program They Will Surf Again, which gets those with spinal cord injuries back into the ocean to surf. He also was inspired to create the Gold Effie and Clio winning anti-heroin campaign for the Partnership for Drug-Free America. Wow, you guys are amazing. Those are some pretty epic bios. And so, does anyone have anything to add? Any introductions that they would like to include?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. We're just blessed to be here and thankful that we were able to follow the paths we've been able to follow that put us right here.
Awesome. All right, we can go ahead and begin. So if anyone has questions, they can go ahead and put them in the chat, or they can raise a hand and go ahead and also just speak out loud too. So to begin, I thought I would ask a few kind of just like basic questions. Can you sum up, either of you, can you sum up the mission of the film in a few sentences?
You want to take that one, Richard? Or do you want me to take it?
Why don't you go, Jeremy? Go ahead. I think that I will fill it out from there. But yeah, that's always how do we do it in 2 sentences?
No, I think I can. It's we basically wanted to share the concept of how triple bottom line businesses are changing the way we do business, and how everyone is a part of the solution if they learn how to vote with their dollars and support organizations, you know, that align with your values.
Yeah, and to add to that, I believe that we're talking about capturing people's imaginations, that they can actually be part of a solution, that they actually, their small actions can actually make change with these great companies that have kind of daringly gone down this path decades ago to now become part of a larger movement, and that we are extending that opportunity to viewers to be part of the solution, for people to vote with their dollar and to understand that, hey, triple bottom line business, socially responsible business can actually make change. In fact, these companies have solutions for the planet, for social issues built into their business models.
Great answer. So you both mentioned this term, triple bottom line. In case people don't know the term, could you define it?
Yeah, so any business has to follow a financial bottom line to survive. You basically do your accounting and figure out, you know, did we lose money or make money? And it's all driven by a view of your financial performance. But what the triple bottom line looks at is the environmental and the social impacts of the business. And if you take those things into account, you know, you are really thinking about the impact of your business as a whole, because you could easily be in a business where you're using pesticides, like let's say it's agricultural and you're spraying pesticides and they're just running off into the watershed, and that's creating costs to the greater community who might end up having to deal with those pesticides or the watershed. But if you're actually thinking about the impact and mitigating that risk, because you're being conscious about it, not because the government is requiring you're thinking about the environmental bottom line. If you're paying a fair trade wage, you're thinking about a social bottom line where, yeah, you might be able to buy something for cheaper that's made in a factory that uses slave labor or below, you know, living wage conditions. But a triple bottom line company wouldn't want to do that. They would want to look at, you know, what is our social bottom line of our company.
Yeah, we look at it as people, planet, and profit. And over the last 4 years, I always wanted to say, well, it's companies that actually value people, planet, and profits equally, but actually that gets into that whole sticky conversation of how do we measure it. But ultimately, I think that there's various degrees of the journey. So companies in various phases of their development and their commitment to the people, planet, and profit model, triple bottom line business model, there's definite variations on how you get there. You know, I think Sambazon, as a case study, wanted to start out as a company that considered social and environmental impacts, but they weren't organic for a number of years. They weren't fair trade for a number of years. So they had a triple bottom line business in mind, but they might have been more at the beginning, more focused on profits and not buying organic, or not pursuing organic, or not there yet. They wanted to be. So I think that that's like an ongoing discussion. But we learned that once you set out to be a triple bottom line business, it's a beginning of a journey. And you're not only thinking about profits, but you're also thinking about people and planet, social and environmental impacts to your business as well.
I love that. So a lot of the times we'll hear the 3 Ps, right? So people, planet, and profit. And I've heard also the term, the 4 Ps, which also includes purpose. What would you say maybe is your personal purpose in life, as well as Sambazon's, and some of the films? Like what is the purpose of this particular film and the films you make in general? So questions for each of you.
Purpose is a really great word. I think it hasn't been totally overused yet, but it's getting there. But I think that I like to say that I'm a purpose-driven filmmaker. I like to, whether we're doing work around in mutual funds, working on a mutual fund that might be actually working on synthetic biology that isn't actually mutating genes for the better, for the worse of the planet, but the better of the planet, or you're working on a film that is like going to help people with spinal cord injuries live a more fulfilling life, or you're talking about this film, which actually straight out of the gate had a mission to make the world a better place, and really rally a group of companies together that were all pursuing this mission individually and then collectively. As the film grew, this became more of a collective story. We can talk more about that. Jeremy can chime in on that because he was a key part in the evolution of the story. But really, I think in this case, it was a daunting task because with this particular purpose-driven film, we from the get-go are like, wow, we need to look at the stakes of climate change are getting so critical. The social issues around some of the inequity and injustice in supply chains are so great. And that all these things that help our communities and these pandemics it's all kind of tied to this imbalance and nationalism and all these issues. There's so many issues tied to this film. So we really had to focus on, okay, the stakes of climate change are so great and there are solutions out there. And as a matter of fact, there are a number of these companies that are working together in different ways across different industries to find solution to our great climate problem and to these social issues that are tied in as well to that. So we really had to tackle with this purpose-driven film the daunting task of a very big high stakes problem. And so that was actually like, how do we do it? And, it was ambitious. And as the project grew in scope, we grew from more of a Sambazon focused movie to a movie that crossed industries with different companies.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would say our purpose it's kind of health and well-being. If you want to go super macro and think about, that we came across acai, we knew that it would bring health to people, substance, and we also learned that it's if it was harvested correctly, it could create jobs and help protect the Amazon rainforest, make the trees more valuable standing than cut down. And to us, that was like, wow, this is an amazing example of like a win-win-win. And it tastes really good. It's not like some, oh, it's good for you, but you gotta plug your nose when you eat it. It's like eating ice cream for breakfast or something. So we were pretty fired up, and it was something that we knew that we were born to do. Sometimes it's funny because I was just hanging out with my friend who is part of the Guayaquil team, and one of the founder actually of Guayaquil, the Argentine, who met the guy from California, and together they started it. And we were just talking about it's almost like we used to say this sometimes back in the day, if you want to get metaphysical, but it's almost like the plants chose us, like we became this way for the plants to get to more people, and the energy and the health of the plants. And both of us work with, they work with mate leaves that are grown wild in the shade under the rainforest canopy. They need that environment to flourish. Acai grows wild. So we're both all of a sudden working with wild harvested fruits and leaves that provide health and wellness. And it's kind of wild to think that we would have ended up in these professions, but it's easy to say, we didn't choose it. It kind of chose us,
Yeah, I would say that's a really good point when looking at problem solving in this film. Actually, it's kind of like the natural, it's the truth in a way. It's sort of the intention of nature that we are solving problems this way. Because if you look at acai farming, when they do it sustainably, they're doing a wild palm tree in the Amazon, the floodplains, the Amazon, that they're actually, if they manage those trees and those harvests more sustainably, the fruits become healthier. And as they harvest more sustainably, that the actual biodiversity of that area of the rainforest becomes more rich, and the fats and the good qualities in that acai becomes better. So you're actually, by pursuing this kind of thing, you are actually improving the rainforest, you're improving the fruit, you're improving the quality of the fruits that you eat, you're improving your own health, and you're creating a model then for other businesses. So like it's problem solving is fun, like this is cool, like I think that's sort of like there's joy in these solutions. So I think across, whether it's yerba mate in the North Atlantic rainforest, how they're regenerating rainforests through their model, and helping indigenous cultures there preserve their tradition of this culture as well. There's a whole culture, a really cool culture around mate and the drinking of mate, which is beautiful. I mean, then, think of Outerknown pulling plastics out of the ocean to make fabrics. And I think it's, the other mission of this film is to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs through the Seeding Change Initiative. Now it was called the Greenhouse Initiative in the film, but inspiring the next generation of social entrepreneurs, like some of you hopefully on this call, that are inspired to come up with business ideas that are these amazing ideas that work with nature to improve the quality of our lives and solve the problems of the planet.
Great. So I have a bunch of follow-up questions, but one of which, you talked about entrepreneurship, and what would you say to an entrepreneur that they have an interest in sustainability, but they don't know how to make it cost effective, so they ponder or at risk of like not considering sustainable practices in their business? What would you say to convince them otherwise to pursue the triple bottom line?
Well, I would say it's a lot easier to try and set your model up with sustainable guideposts than to take a business and later try and convert it. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, because, businesses, they start going down a path, and if they make that change, that could be, financial suicide for the company, when the choice that they decided to make in the beginning, that was that compromise, now is something they can't shake, and it's something they don't feel good about. They don't feel like, they can ever solve. So I think in the beginning, you kind of have to figure out how to make your model work. Not perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be, it's going to take time to get it all right, but you got to try and figure out the financial model so that you have a path, and that your most important elements, you can feel good about, and maybe see a path from here to there. As far as, if you can't go 100% organic in the product that you developed, maybe you can start at 60%, knowing that over time you can make your way to 100. I know that some of the bigger companies that made that decision, like let's call out like Cliff Bar, they couldn't flip the switch and go organic, but they made a decision like, we'll be organic by this year, or we'll end up committing to go 70% organic by this year. And they took 10 years to get there, but they did it. But it's easier in the beginning if you kind of set those goalposts up, with the sustainability goals in mind.
I would add that you just have to go for it too. I mean, just like filmmaking is a super challenging path. And, the best advice I ever had was you just want to shoot anything and everything you can get your hands on. And I think that with regards to entrepreneurship like this, is you want to go for it. You want to try anything you think of, and you just fail fast. I think Ryan Black says, you fail often, fail fast. And, try it and go for it and have the big vision. I mean, how crazy was it that they had this idea that they're going to bring berries back from the Amazon? How are they going to get it here, get it on ice 24 hours and get it all over the world? Like, it's an insane idea, but it was a great idea, and they followed through with it. So I think that the have ideas, share them, try them, especially now when you're in college. It's such a great time to try things. And also, we've seen with the schools that we work with in this film, whether it was people from UNC or University of Washington or Santa Clara or wherever these students were, they all had great ideas and incredible energy. The energy and the positivity and kind of the students seem galvanized around this mission of taking care of the planet and finding solutions for the planet. So I'd say, really, and when you're at school, leverage the resources of the professors there that have written books on this stuff or have started their own businesses. Go to the Sustainable Business Center if there is one, and do everything you can. And it's like, it'll be really rewarding, and you will succeed, because when this idea fails, it will actually, you're preparing yourself for the next one that actually works.
Well said. Any other notes to add on that? Cool. And then another.
I would say too, like, put your ideas into the Seeding Change initiative that Sambazon puts on, the Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Jeremy, do you know the dates?
We're working on having it relaunched this fall, but we don't have it specific yet. But we're, there's a page on the website, seedingchangefilm.com, that basically is saying if you're interested in learning more, give us your email and we'll be in touch about it.
And that program offers grant money and mentorship for your green business ideas. So that's a great place to put ideas in, and potentially get your idea incubated. And that the winners of that, actually, we featured them in the Seeding Change film for that particular year.
And so this link is on the website?
Yeah, it's on seedingchangefilm.com.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put a link to that. After this, we put up the recording on YouTube, and then I send out an email with the recording as well as any relevant links. So I'll go ahead and link to that as well.
Yeah, there's a take action page on the website that actually will give you links to resources, other resources as well. So if you're interested in learning more about how to purchase from companies that are doing good, that we want to, at the end of the day, when people finish watching the film, we want people to be more conscious about their purchase decisions. So putting their money behind those companies that are actually regenerating rainforests or helping preserve rainforests rather than cutting it down, or those companies that are upcycling and pulling things out of landfill rather than like adding to the landfill. So that there's like a whole consciousness that once you start looking and looking for products that are doing good, and you start thinking that way, it really can change things.
So that leads me to one question I wanted to ask. What kind of sustainable business products or processes do you use at Sambazon?
Wow. There are there's a lot. We have teams that are dedicated to figuring out how to, improve our carbon footprint, to manage our organic and fair trade supply chains. We have a program that we started in this last year called JEDI, that is about social and racial justice. Every department basically has a filter that is, how is this impacting the environment? How is this impacting, the social elements? So if we're developing a new SKU, let's say we're making a new acai smoothie that has banana and mango in it. Part of that is to figure out where the mangoes and bananas coming from. Is it is it fair trade? Is it organic? Then you start thinking about the bottle, how's the bottle being made? Is it made from recycled materials? we've developed some new products that can be composted. And that's kind of what we feel the future is. It's still a little tough on food for some things, but for other things you can do it. So it kind of becomes the whole business when you have a triple bottom line has a sustainability element to it, and everyone from operations and procurement people to product development people to marketing and sales people is thinking about these things.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, this one company, Outer Known Surfboards, for example, they're a company that's, the founder makes them put only one trash can in the whole office. So everyone actually has to bring their trash to that one trash can. And so they're more conscious of how much trash they're actually producing. So, things like that, or they're finding worms to, believe it or not, ingest waste from certain processes in their surfboard manufacturing. So thinking about every aspect of the business, I think that the biodegradable wrapper that the collective of companies were working on, one step closer to the nonprofit in the film, working with Sambazon and Numi and a number of other companies on this biodegradable packaging option to plastic, is a huge breakthrough. They've been working on that for 10 years, and that's just a testimony to having that commitment that you're just going to go for it and keep working until you get there, because plastic is a huge issue. It's like my biggest concern right now, like after doing this film, it's like where I really want to focus my efforts is on how do we really solve the plastic packaging issue, with all the plastic beads in the fish that we're eating. And, honestly, it's like this, so Sambazon has a new biodegradable bowl. So that's a huge breakthrough. And that's a testimony to, like, we're not perfect from the outset because we're building our company as triple bottom line, and we're fair trade. We still have things and problems we're trying to solve. So it's an ongoing journey, the path to making a better company and a better planet.
Well said. And yeah, plastics is definitely something we need to look more at. And being surfers, I'm sure you're even more concerned about it. So thank you for answering that. Are there any other actions you can think of off the top of your head besides some of these on your page, like supporting brands, going plant-based, providing feedback, implementing renewable energies, decreasing waste? Like, what individual actions can I take to support a better world?
Yeah, it sounds like you're taking a look at our Take Action page. I love it.
Yeah.
So, it kind of starts with you doing an audit of your own. It's almost like your own budget. You take a look at where you're spending your money, and you can just, hopefully you know how to use an Excel spreadsheet, and you take a look at a budget and you think about where's my money going. And then once you see, okay, I'm spending this much on food, I'm spending this much on transportation and energy and these things. And then you start thinking about what are the companies that I am basically buying from in those categories, and do some homework on the companies at the top of the list as far as where the bulk of your money's going, and think about, is that the company I want to support to continue to be in business? Or, is there another company that can offer me the same thing that I need as a person to survive and live, that's doing it in a way that is more sustainable, that is considering the environmental elements, that is on the path at least? And or is there something else I can do? Can I trade that out? Can I have less of that? Can I switch from a normal car to a hybrid car, or even to an electric car? And if I'm using an electric car, can I charge it from solar panels on my roof instead of, potentially having it charged from the electric company that might be, not using a sustainable resource to give you that power. So you kind of got to dig in each specific area that is personalized to you as far as your budget. You can talk to the companies that you buy from, and that's part of what that take action page is like. Hey, talk to the companies. You know, you might love a product and you might reach out to that company and say, hey, I love your product, but I want to know more about, you know, are you guys paying a living wage to your employees? Or is there products coming from another country that it's kind of hard to get from your website, or doing a little bit of research? And I'm a consumer and I'm concerned about this and I'd like to know more, because that feedback starts to trickle up to their marketing teams and their customer service teams. And the more people that are asking, the more they're starting to think, wow, people are starting to ask about this. This is important. You know, we need to make a change. You know, if you walk into any grocery store today, you'll notice that there's like whole organic aisles, or there's organic sections in every aisle. And it wasn't like that 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. You know, I'm sure some of you might remember, you know, there used to be about 100 Whole Foods stores across the country and a few other regional stores that carried some organic products. But you could walk into a normal grocery store like a Vaughn's or a Ralph's and you barely found any. That's all changed because people started asking for it. People started buying it, you know? So it's this interesting chicken or egg thing, but like the more we tell the companies we want this, the more we buy it, the more they're going to produce it. You know, everything, you know, I hate to say it in like such a cold way, but everything follows the money, you know? So if everybody wants organic eggs and nobody wants conventional eggs, no one's going to produce conventional eggs anymore, you know? So, you know, that's kind of one of the most simple examples I can think of with regards to that. And then, you know, there's so many ways to innovate and create products that might solve a problem. You know, maybe there isn't organic eggs out there and you're like, oh my gosh, I could easily create and sell organic eggs. And then, you know, you've created a solution that a bunch of people could start buying so that they're making the world a better place.
I think that to add as well, I think that we talk about people's values as consumers. We all share these certain values that we want to be equitable. We value the planet, we value human life, and we value the health of the ecosystems. Like, we as humans naturally have these values, and that we want these things. And that somewhere along the way, conventional business kind of separated those values from us. And it's like we're taking these values back, and that people are like, yeah, I want that. Like, how do I get that? You know, and I think that idea, there's a question that came up, like, how do we convince people to do business this way? Like, if we're an employee in a company that's not doing business the right way, how do we put pressure on them? Or how, if I want to start a company and I want to convince investors to invest in my company because we want to do business fair trade organic, it's going to cost more. So how do I convince investors to give me that money? Like, maybe this is a question for Jeremy. I believe, seeing from this side, that consumers are demanding this more from companies. But like, it is true, there is sticking points where, you know what, I just can't get the money. I can't just get the consumer base I need to make business work so I could actually have an organic product or a company that operates on this mission. So how do I change my company, or how do I change people to back my mission? Jeremy, do you have any ideas on sort of the difficulties that you face?
Well, I mean, it's all business. You know, a huge percentage of businesses fail. You know, even the good, harder businesses are going to fail. You just have to go for it and work hard. Is kind of the thing. You know, anything you have a lot of passion for. I do tend to see a lot of companies, at least in the natural foods and natural products industry, seem like the employees and the constituents of the company have, I guess, a better vibe because they're working for a company they feel good about. You know, I've definitely watched a lot of people come to Sambazon and be like, oh, I'm so happy to be here because I feel like I'm I'm contributing every day, make the world a better place. The last place I worked, it was just about the money, and it was just like, make your money and go home. And it's, we're all investing our time too. We vote with our time. Like, where are we working? What are we putting our energy toward? Would you, just like you want to choose that organic apple instead of that pesticide sprayed apple to eat, you want to work for a company that has these values. If you're not starting a company, at least go work for one, because those companies need inspired, innovative people. And if the job market starts to shift towards companies that have these values, the big companies are going to realize that too. They're going to be like, nobody wants to work here anymore because we don't care about the environment. We better like make a change. All of a sudden you're seeing, Exxon's getting environmentalists on their board, So it is changing. It's got to start changing a lot faster with all the problems we have, but it's definitely happening, and that's positive.
I would say this. I would say this, that actually this gives me what Jeremy is saying, I think is really the answer for people that are working in startups, because I think of my business, for example, like I, as a purpose-driven company, like my purpose-driven films, my purpose-driven projects, like I attract talent to my projects. I attract the best people to my projects because they want to contribute. They want to contribute to a great project that has public good or has public benefit, makes the world a better place. Like, people want to be part of projects like that. So I have had luck getting the best talent for my projects through the years because of those kinds of missions. And, it starts with great ideas. Like, if you have a great idea for a story or film that actually has a great cause tied to it, you're gonna have a lot easier job getting good talent, inspired people to work around the clock, which it takes on any startup. So I think that really that is, students and aspiring entrepreneurs and people that really want to get out and make a difference. I think that is where it's at. Like, have an inspired mission and know that you're gonna get like-minded people on board who are gonna, because you have to be able to be passionate and burn the midnight oil to make it happen. So I think I really believe that with the way that the demand's shifting toward more value-oriented products and products that are solving problems, people are concerned about the plastic pollution problem. I had a call with Bumblebee Tuna this last week, and their biggest concern, other than harming dolphins, is plastic pollution and how they're going to sustain fishing and for their products. And, people are asking now, the consumers are asking for it. So I think that, that should be definitely more inspiration to tackle the difficulties of starting up and starting your business with the right kind of triple bottom line business model from the get-go. Build in organic, fair trade, and social impact into your business model. Solve problems from the outset, and that should inspire people to fund you, inspire talent to come help you, and inspire great things to happen.
So that's a really interesting take on, like, if you're the environmentalist, what can you do? But there's an interesting question in the chat from John. Hey, John, going back to purpose, working in higher education, it's been hard to convince some people, some that it still operates as a business, but with purpose. How do you incorporate the missions you espouse into a business? So the opposite, ? I guess, how do you foster buy-in from employees to buy into such an important mission? So what if your company is not so environmentally friendly? How can we get them to buy into some of these purposes and missions and all of that?
I think it's just a matter of discussion with your teams, sharing solutions. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to make the world a better place. And I think the data is starting to really show up that we've got major problems we need to fix. And no matter what company you're in, I think there's probably got to be something that company could be doing better to help people in need, to help the environment. Yeah, I mean, education is the key. Creating, films like the one we just made, I hope that this film inspires 100 more films that talk about voting with your dollar, you know, whether you see our film or not. Like, I hope that it inspires more films. I hope that the film gets shown in classrooms to high school and college students, because I think that kids will see the film and be inspired to either, you know, change the way that they purchase, start a company, or work for a company that's, you know, solving a solution, and realizing that, hey, like, it's not, it's kind of, it can be fun and a win-win to support products that actually save the planet, instead of just buying some, you know, artificially caffeinated flavored beverage because it costs 95 cents at the Arco or whatever, you know.
I would say that, I mean, for one, I mean, Jeremy was saying this too earlier, that it really, like, for the biggest naysayers, I mean, show them how much money they could save by doing it the right way, you know, show them the benefits that are actually, that they can't argue with. You know, I think that, like, one of the big concerns that we have making movies, like, how do we convince those naysayers that don't even think there's a problem in the first place? I mean, on one hand, you can't, certain people you can't convince. So if you make the pitch to your boss that, hey, you know, going solar panels is going to save us a few $100,000 a year, you know, or what, I'm just throwing that out. And then they're still like, well, I don't care, you know, and then it's like time to move on. Or that's a company that might actually look down, because it's not your job to show me that solution. Like, you know, it might be time for you to move on out of that job and move to a different company or a different institution that actually values those kinds of ideas. So I think it's on, this idea is putting the onus on individuals at companies, as well as onus on the consumers. Like, you know, you do the walkout on Earth Day, walk out of the company, start a protest with the employees in the company, and all walk out on that day. If you don't like that company's, the way that they're handling their employees, or that you don't believe that the way that they're handling their waste, or the certain things they're doing that could be changed, then you walk out of that company with a collective of other like-minded individuals. I mean, I think we're asking people, like, to take action, and take action within their companies, take action in the supermarkets. And if you're finding resistance, then you should move to a place where you're going to be embraced for those ideas. And that's how change is going to happen. And you know what? When you go to that place where your ideas are embraced, you're going to fulfill your own individual missions and succeed.
I like your comment there, John, about, you know, fast food. Why is it so cheap? I mean, that there's a topic called the true cost that really talks about the idea of, let's go back to that apple or even that egg, and it's like, what makes that organic apple more expensive? Well, it was harder to grow. They couldn't just spray pesticides on it. But the reality is, you know, the pesticides that go into that apple, into the groundwater, you know, poison and potentially hurt people with cancers or other things that could come from consuming those pesticides. Those costs aren't really thought about when you look at the cheap apple compared to the organic apple. And if it's a banana that's harvested in Costa Rica and people aren't being paid a living wage, it's like, do you want to support that industry that is not paying somebody a living wage so that your banana costs 16 cents instead of 19 cents? Or do you want to pay the real cost, which is what the organic banana costs, so that they pay a living wage, they don't spray pesticides? So there's a conversation around the true cost, and it's not always as easy as a piece of fruit, but you know, there's a reason why fast food is cheap. They get government subsidies, they use GMOs, you know, it's pretty wild, you know, why that stuff's cheap. But that becomes like the barometer, and people being like, oh, that's so expensive versus so cheap. It's like, well, let's take a look at that. Let's look at why things are cheap.
I mean, I have, for example, Outerknown clothing. They're in the film, you know, their products are considerably more expensive, and people are like, oh my gosh, $100 for that shirt. But in fact, you actually, when you wear it, you wear you like to wear it, you wear it more often. You actually, the other shirts in your closet gather dust. So there is that kind of learning factor, that education factor of like, well, maybe we don't need as many shirts. We just need one or two good ones. It might cost a little more, but they'll last 10 years. And, Patagonia is doing this thing where you can take your ripped and tattered one in and they'll actually up and fix it for free, because part of the solution to our waste problem is actually reducing our usage, and having less stuff. So I think that that's part of the education process too, is how we buy stuff and how much we buy stuff, and maybe it actually is, that $100 shirt costs far less when you factor in all the other things, like what is the plastic that washes up on your beach. How much is your beach worth? How much you could people are putting dollar amounts on like the actual value of your watershed. So I think that like it's priceless, really, your drinking water. But all this stuff we're talking about is those pesticides. Yeah, they're going to end up in the drinking water. You're going to be that cancer that you're going to have at age 45 or whatever. It could be a direct result of that. So these are huge issues, and the price. Being a cancer survivor myself, I mean, those are huge costs, and you don't realize it until you go through it.
I'm really glad you brought up the idea of true cost. I had a conversation, I think actually last week on Friday, about that, and the true cost of meat and everything, and the externalized costs of your healthcare associated with eating meat. I'm vegan, and I have to say that at every meeting apparently. And so if people consider the true cost on their health, on the environment, on social justice issues, I think that we would be in a much better place. And it would be really interesting if there was a true cost label that we can put on products and then truly inform the consumer. Because that's part of it. A lot of consumers just don't know. And
Yeah.
you made one point earlier about doing research on some of these companies, but some of these companies are not very transparent. There's a very big company, I won't say any details about them, but I asked them some questions about their sustainability initiatives and like where they were procuring food from, and they wouldn't tell me. And that's a concern because they tout themselves as a sustainable business and a sustainable business model. So if you can't get that information from the company, that's quite concerning. So if we could create some sort of label or database app, that has the true cost of all of these things. I know that there's similar guides and rating systems, but I don't know. I think we need to educate a lot more on these matters.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for innovation in this area, actually, because the transparency factor keeps growing exponentially. So, today there's, I don't know how many apps, but there's a lot that can help you find companies that are more sustainable, that either follow a triple bottom line, quote unquote, or are trying to, or on the path. You've got the B corporations who do an annual, commitment to an audit and have guidelines that they need to follow. In some categories like food, it's a lot easier because you can say, are you organic? Are you fair trade? That's a big step. In some industries, that's not the case. You can't easily find that stuff, where it's really hard to do some of these measures, and it's really costly in some cases to do these measures. But I think there's a lot of innovation happening right now, and there's room for a lot of innovation that will help us learn how to vote with our dollar quicker, better, learn how to understand the complexities of like how to score. Because even as we talk about a triple bottom line, there is no simple formula for it, because it's so different for every company. And it actually takes quite a bit of resources to try and measure all that stuff. It's kind of exciting. You got some companies like Thrive Market, who we featured in the film, who do a pretty good job of curating products and making their own products that follow these types of guidelines. You've got apps that are starting to pop up all over the place that are trying to curate brands and products. Even Amazon's trying to figure out how to solve that. So the solutions are starting to present themselves, but there's also a lot of room for innovation as we keep seeing more demand for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a slew of new business ideas hopefully coming into the program, the Seeding Change Initiative, that might actually even tap on the notion of true costs. I mean, imagine if you could come up with a product that actually just was enlightened by that concept. I think that like it makes me think of Mammoth Lakes. I had a friend, a director of marketing for Surfrider, and they were looking at like the economic impact that mountain biking brought on like a certain part of the national forest there. And they are, by creating more industry on the national parkland, they were able to kind of generate more sustainability there. Like by creating industry around their parkland, they're able to build economies, kind of like a model like Amazon with their trees in the rainforest. By creating value in the trees, in the Amazon, those wild acai palms, they've helped protect over 2 million acres of rainforest, because they're not going to cut those acai palms down now because they're too valuable. Fruit continues to grow, and they continue to make good living there now off those acai berries. So similarly, like, how do we take our natural resources and build industries around them to sustain them and nourish them and protect them? And those kind of concepts of true cost, like, are definitely a really ripe area for new business ideas.
So are there any apps that you can recommend?
I think I recently saw there's like Good Human, Kind Human.
Oh.
There's Thrive Market is a great place. Whole Foods Market obviously is a great market that has a lot of values in the products that they're bringing in.
While we were finishing the film, we had someone actually working on an app like this too. And so we have a few different, like one that we could, if you wanted to follow up, we could follow up to a little more prepared response on that one. But we have recommendations.
Yeah, I'm including like Kind Human and Good Human. It looks like they're both two separate things.
Yep.
I'll include that in my little update email. And then if you do some research and want to respond with others, that'd be great. Everyone likes apps. And so I feel like if we can get these apps to some more people, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, and I think if you go to the B corporations, they probably have a bunch of anyone that's got the B Corp, you could probably find a list of companies. There's a good vetting source for companies if you're looking for, brands that have committed to follow sustainability initiatives.
That's actually a great point. Do you want to define what BCore is? Like, some people might not know what a benefit corporation is.
Yeah, the B Corps have a commitment to becoming a more sustainable company. In some cases, they actually write it into their, corporate charter to be, instead of like a S Corp or a C Corp, they become a B benefit corporation. So they've basically like written in their bylaws that this is what their, initiative is, and they're going to be a benefit for society and humanity corporation. It's pretty awesome. We actually were one of the early starting B Corps companies. We're actually not a B Corp right now, and because we decided that we wanted to fund more schools in Brazil, so we were basically doing it ourselves without needing to follow the guidelines. We just kind of policing ourselves on that. But for a lot of smaller companies and companies that want to have some kind of accountability set up, a lot of people join the B Corps. They have to pay a fee to do that, but they get a lot of resources for it. And you know, you'll see some big companies like, you know, Ben and Jerry's and Patagonia, and then a lot of small companies too. So it's a good group. They actually, what I really like about them is they require everyone to do an annual audit, which basically is like, where are we now? Where do we want to go? How did we score? And they have to do an annual audit and see where their score is. So, you know, when you're doing that, you're taking a look at what you're doing, and you're paying attention, and you can, you know, look at what areas you want to improve on. And then a year later, when you do it again, you got to do an assessment and say, hey, did we do what we were supposed to? And that's just part of the work, you know, but that they require them to do that, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that it's like about starting. So like you can measure where we were and where we are now, because for example, this film, now we are now thinking about things like offsetting our travel for our production. So we work with this nonprofit called Sea Trees, and they actually plant mangrove forests to offset carbon, right? So like the mangrove trees in the aquatic ecosystems they live in are 5 times more carbon reductive than regular forests. So they actually offer this program where they calculate all of our travel on the film, and then they actually tell us how much carbon we need to offset, and then they will plant trees for us for a certain fee. So like that's a good example of like this production. We were like, we need to be accountable, and in the past I haven't, you know, didn't even think about that. So through the process of like being accountable, where were we before? We were not offsetting our travel for productions, and now we are. So like I'm making progress on my mission as a more sustainable company, and I have a lot more things to think about, but at least I started with that.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, we use this phrase, or even we just say that like sustainability is a process. So it's always just a work in process. And I wanted to mention the BCore thing. I love BCore, everything about it. And then we've been speaking about if you're an environmentalist wanting to work for a company that's more sustainable, how can you do so? Well, they've got a job board at the BCore website. So you can look for jobs there with BCores, which is awesome. So if you're looking to make a move, search that. And I think that's all I wanted to say about BCore, but they're great. And I'm glad that you brought that up. Totally forgot to mention that. I know that we're a little over time. I have so many other questions that I wanted to ask. I feel like I could go on for like years because these things really interest me. Sustainability, all of it.
Never ending discussion. That's what this movie was, really 4 years of really good conversations.
So, okay, then final question maybe. Will there be a follow-up? What are each of yours plans for the future with Sambazon and future films?
I would say, well, I'll say we've discovered so many new companies that we couldn't put in the film. So, I mean, I'm kind of keeping on the idea of a notion of how we can turn this into a series. And Jeremy, I haven't talked about that yet, but I mean, I think it's something that's just going to happen naturally. We're going to see how that goes. But yeah, I think, you know, with regards to my projects, I'm looking at the ocean and ocean health for a future documentary series, because I believe the ocean is 70% of our planet, and there's so many sustainable solutions in the ocean. And like, you know, working with Sea Trees on this project, I mean, they're kelp reforestation, and they've planted 1 million mangrove trees now. They're working with huge companies to find climate solutions in the ocean. So that's definitely going to be a focus for future projects for me. Yeah, so I think there's a lot, you know, with this, as we start this path of this, the great thing about this film is we realize that we can do storytell around these kind of great solutions, and that there's a lot of great filmmaking to be done. As Jeremy said, we hope that there's 1 million more films on this topic.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, I would love to find ways to build on this film and follow up. I think we've got actually a lot of work to do still to get this film out. We're getting it now into distribution through the educational channel. So we've got a distributor that's trying to take it to universities all over the world to get it into their libraries, because we would love nothing more than students to see this film and get inspired. We'd love to see it end up on some of the streaming channels so more people could see it without, you know, having to pay or anything. Yeah, just got to keep doing what we're doing. A lot of work and a lot of fun. That's the only way to do it.
I would echo that distribution of a film is a whole other aspect. It's one thing, you've got to make a great film, and there's a whole other side of the business that's distributing it. Fortunately, we have a really strong educational distributor, Rocco Films, and they actually handled Inconvenient Truth and all the participant films. So they have an incredible track record there on the educational side. And then we have a top mainstream entertainment distributor in 1091 Pictures. But there is the process of, like, you know, we're in the process of trying to get more film critics reviews and trying to really figure out the best way to market alongside our distributor. And then our distributor is having meetings with companies like Hulu, and they're having meetings with companies around the world that have different streaming platforms in different countries. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity, a lot of work still to be done to try to get this to more mainstream audiences, but definitely at least the ambitions for getting really widespread distribution through schools and to students is a huge part of the project.
Awesome. So I'm going to put a link to a post-screening survey in the chat. If anyone wants to go ahead and take that survey from the filmmakers themselves, that'd be very helpful. I'll also put it in our email following this as well. And I lied, I actually have one final question. It should be easy, I think. Can you all teach me how to surf?
I honestly am not a surf teacher at all. I'm horrible at teaching, but I could show you where you can get some lessons if you come to Malibu.
All right.
Similarly, I can tell you, I can point you to great surf teachers in Laguna Beach where I live.
So I didn't actually catch that. What was that, Richard?
Oh, in Laguna Beach, if you come to Laguna Beach, I can point you to really good surf teachers. I think Jeremy's got a good point. You want a good instructor. It's a hard sport, and we have really good instructors in Laguna Beach. And I can point you to those if you come to Laguna Beach. Same as Jeremy, he's got good contacts in Malibu for surf stuff.
All right, well, I guess I know what I'm doing this summer.
Nice.
Worth it.
Awesome. All right, thank you all. Sorry for keeping you a little late. I could keep going for years and years. I'm like the Energizer Bunny on these kind of topics. But thank you all, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Friday.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Great questions. Thanks for being here, everyone. And yeah, we really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for your interest.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
everyone.